Hello and welcome. Thank you for participating in our discussion about locations and bins. And so we're going to get right to it. Of course, order time underneath the covers is primarily an inventory and order management system, primarily an inventory system. One of the ways to manage inventory is using locations. And locations are used to separate inventory into physical or logical buckets. So typically a location is like a warehouse, but it could just as easily be someone's truck. And it could be, an inventory, like a customer inventory, which is more of a logical bucket. So it's really a way of separating out the inventory between between the other inventories. And as you can see here, HQ, there's always an HQ in every file that you start. And this is really should be set as your primary location. And it's the default location in most of the transactions. You can't really delete it or inactivate it, but you can change the name of it. So you can change the name of it to your name over here, and that way you can set that up as being the default location. I also have another location here called overflow, and you'll notice that this column here called available is actually not checked. And so in inventory, what we mean by that it's not available. So basically I went into the editor of the location and I unchecked this available. And basically what that is that the inventory is still on hand, but it's not available, quote unquote, for sales orders. Okay. So it doesn't write off your inventory. It keeps it in your inventory, including the value, but it does not make it available for sales orders. Okay, so in order to create, I can just to create a new location, I simply go to the locations list. I can get to the locations list from the warehouse menu item, or I can get to the locations list from open new locations. And then once I'm on the location list, I can create a new location from here just by clicking new location. Or going create new location. And the only required field for location is the name. That's all I have to fill in. So I'm just going to put in a new location here called Ohio. All right, so now I have a new location. Obviously, the name of the location has to be unique. If I've never used the location and I want to delete it, I can just delete the location like so. Okay. If I've already used the location, all right, you'll see here that this location has already been used. If I never want to use it again, I would make it inactive, and then it wouldn't show up as an available location to pick for a future transaction. In each location, you can set up multiple bins. Like locations, the bin can be made inactive. So you'll notice here I have a bin called QU, which is short for quarantine, and I made it unavailable. And so when I return inventory into the, let's say from a customer, they have some kind of a defect, and I want to isolate it. I don't want to make it available for sale. I would put it into the default location. Now, a bin name cannot be duplicated in the same location, but you can use the same bin name in a different location. So I can have an A1 in one of my other locations, no problem, which I do have actually in the NY location. In terms of naming your bins, the bins names can be up to 50 characters. So there's a lot of rooms to put in. You want to keep them short and concise. And in terms of naming your bins, especially the way we kind of use the bin names to sort alphanumerically. Okay, so the bin names are sorted alphanumerically, and if you're using numbers, let's say the number 2 over here, you'll notice that it comes after number 11, which of course makes no sense, but that's just the way alphanumeric sorting works, in that the value of 2 is greater than the value of 11 in terms of computer bits and bytes. Now let's see what happens when I change this, the name of this location. Instead of 2, I'm going to change it to 02. So I'm just going to show you that I've already kind of I've already created this to edit it. I'm just going to click on the editor here, and I'm going to change this to 02. All right, it automatically will kind of add it. So I'm going to resort it here, and you'll notice now that 02 comes before 11. So it's a good idea to kind of what we call pad in computer science terms, pad your names with an appropriate number of digits. So if you're going to use numbers, you would and you want to use 1. 1 would be 00001 if you're gonna settle on your standard naming convention, which will always have 5 digits. Okay, in this case, my naming convention has 4 digits. So if I add, and now I'm going to add another location, and we're just going to call this 002, 0002 to make sure that they all have 4 digits. And when I sort it, I'll see that 002 is ahead of 011. Okay, so that's an important thing. All right, so that's that. Now, later on, I'm going to show you how to print some labels of your bins as well. Now, let's go ahead and understand a little bit about, now let's say I have all my bin locations set up, and I know that certain items will always be placed in a certain location, or a certain bin, sorry. And I can preset that in the item editor. So I'm going to edit this particular item, and then here I can pick whichever bin I want. All right. So if I don't pick an actual bin on the item level, the default bin will be used, which in this case is called FL, short for floor. Okay. So if I don't specify a default bin on the item, by default, that the bin selected will be the default bin for that location. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put in here a default location. So we'll just put in this one over here that we just created, and that's that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to receive some inventory. Of course, I can go to my items list, and we're going to take a look, and I'm just going to add a couple of other columns here. I'm going to remove this column over here, and we're going to add whether it's tracked, and we're going to also put in the bin name, so we can see which items have bins and which items don't. Okay. All right, so this item has the bin, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to receive some inventory through a receiver. Okay, I'm going to receive some inventory with a receiver. So I'm going to bypass the purchase order and go right to a receiver. I'm going to pick my vendor, and I'm going to pick my location, and we're going to add that item. And so that item is right over here, and we're going to add 50. All right, so here we really don't know which location which bin location. We know the location it went to. It went into HQ, but we don't really know the bin location it went to. I'm going to add one more item so we can kind of compare what happens when something does not have a default. So I'll just use this one over here. I'll add that one, and we'll add 50 of those. All right, so to know the location, I can just go to the line item editor. And if I toggle to the bins, I can see here that by default, it went into, in fact, the bin location that I specified for the item. The second item that did not have a default bin location went into the bin location of the location, default bin of the location, which was FL as I showed you. Now let's say I want to put the inventory in another bin. It went by default into this bin, and I don't want to have it in here. So I can easily delete this bin. So I can do that, and I can add just simply another bin. So I can just start typing that in, and let's say again I want A1. All right, I'm going to put 25, and I'm going to put another 25 into B2. So as you can see here, I can receive into as many bin locations as I want in one transaction. So going to this item now, I see that I have it in the HQ location. I have it in two bins. One is called FL, the other one is 001, and then I have the New York location. I have two of them in A1. Now, if I go to New York, it'll send me into the location list, and if I click on the inventory, I can easily see exactly what inventory I have at each location. So there's a couple of ways to view your inventory. You can view it en masse in the inventory list. Okay. Or if I want to look at it one location at a time, I can again go to the locations list and then simply click on the location, toggle to the inventory tab, and then I have kind of a shortened version of what we call the child list with filtered by only this location. Okay. It's very easy to kind of figure that out. All right, moving right along. So similarly, if you have a location that you've created, or a bin location that you've created and you've used it already, you can't delete it because it's already been used. So you can make it inactive so that it will not be used again. All right. Okay. So there's two scenarios that could happen. Very common is moving inventory between locations. So this time we're moving inventory from one location to another location, and the methodology for that is using the new transfers. Okay, the transfers. So of course the first thing I'm going to pick is my from location, and the next thing I'm going to pick is my to location. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and save. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an item that I want to transfer. Okay. So it's going to go, I'm going to just add the same item that we've been working with here. And let's say we want to transfer 10. So I transfer 10 of them. And again, I'm going to go into the line item editor, and here we have the bins, of course. So it came out of this bin that we just selected, the default bin. But then we also have this to location as well. All right. So the the from location bin is, so it's coming out of 0011, which is the HQ location, and it's going into the overflow location, and the bin it's going to is OV 001. And similarly, I can edit this, and let's say I want to do that, and I want to add another bin, second bin over here. All right, so now we have the two locations, and so I've now split that up into two locations on the receiving end. And I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to put this into transit, and I'm going to explain that in transit, so I'm going to add a new column here to my locations things, or it's actually already there, and I can see here that it's in transit. All right, so we basically transferred it out of here, but you might be questioning, why is it only in transit in the to location? Well, because it's already left the from location, so we're expecting it in the to location, and that's why it's in transit. Right? Depending on so in transit means that it may be available depending on your preference, but it's certainly not on hand. Right? So when I now change the status of the transfer to received, I'm going to reload this item, and you can see here that there's no longer in transit. It's on hand. Now, you'll notice here that it's not available because, well, this location called overflow is not available. To gain visibility of that, there's another column which is called unavailable, and you'll notice that they're here. Okay, so as you can clearly see, that the overflow location is on hand, but it's not available, and it has value. The second scenario is if you want to move inventory from one bin to another bin. So in order to do that, we're going to go to again to the warehouse menu, and we're going to select create new bin move. And generally going to first pick the location, and it'll give you a list of all the bins that have kind of a location in it. And we're going to move into one of the other locations. You cannot pick the same location that you transfer it to. You must pick a different location. And then I pick the item that I want to transfer. It tells me everything that's in that location already. So there's that item that we've been working with, and then we just basically pick a quantity and we press save. Now we can continue doing that. We can continue doing that for, let's say, another combination of item and bin. And I'm doing that by item. Okay, so I'm going to do that by item. And let's say this one, and we'll do another. Okay, 10 there. All right, so we're continuing to do that. Now I can also, if I wanted to, move an entire bin. In which case, it doesn't matter what items I pick. I just want to move the entire quantity of what I have from one bin to another bin. Okay, so that's really good if you're kind of reorganizing your bins and you want to not use them anymore. You want to clear all the inventory out of that bin. That is the way that you would do that. So we're going to go ahead and actually finish off this. And what it will do in the background is it will create an inventory adjustment. So here's the inventory adjustment, and you can tell that I actually did move the entire bin. So we'll just take a look at a couple of things. You can see everything is 0. And the reason everything is 0 is because underneath the covers, all we're doing here is we're moving bins from one to another. So that's one way of doing a bin move. All right. Actually, redo that one. So there is the transaction underneath the covers, and you'll notice this adjustment, because it has no account, won't go into QuickBooks for syncing. It's just an internal thing that we do internally. Now, let's take a look at some of the reporting that we can use to track down really the movement between bins. And so now I went to and navigated to the bin, the reports area, and I'm going to click on this inventory movement report with bins. And by default, it's filtered. It's filtered by today, but here we can see kind of the inventory movement back and forth between. So we've received some in and we've moved inventory. So you can see the negatives are the transfers, the two positives going into that location. So here's the bin, here's the location. And if I wanted to, on the quantity, I can add a sum to see kind of today how the inventory is moved back and forth. Right? So really, we just added the 50 units today. The rest of it was just moving things around. So the net was that. And of course, we also received those two in those bins as well. That, of course, it's just today. If I wanted to filter, so I can filter just like any other reports by certain dates or certain items, certain transaction types, etc. Okay. So it's very easy to do that. I'm going to log out of this company and go into another company. So if I mentioned that you can print labels for your bins. So I've enabled the label printing, and I'm going to go to my label templates, and one of the sources that I can use is called bins. One of the sources I can use is called bins, and these selected some really tiny Avery labels for that. Of course, they can be any type of labels. And all I did here was add the bin name. So I'll just redo that for you. So I just added a barcode. I click the barcode. And I just want to have the bin name. And on the barcode, I also want to show the name of the barcode on there as well. Okay. So all I have to do now is take that and drag it into here. And we're back here and center that, and you save that. If you want, you can kind of preview that as well. So once I have that, in order to print the barcodes of the bins, I simply go to the location that I want to print it for. So in this case, I'll just go to HQ, which has a lot more. And there are my bins. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you the PDF version of those. Okay. There they are. So then I can take that. Recently, we came out with the first version of the iOS the ability to ship orders, pick orders, and pick orders with the iOS, and it has the ability to use your camera to scan barcodes, including scanning bins. one other point that I wanted to point out about locations and transfers, and really this is a special circumstance. On the sales side, under advanced, you can actually enable transferring from a location. Transferring from a sales order, and this is supports two particular workflows. One is if you're kind of treating a location almost like a separate entity, where you want to kind of, instead of creating your ship doc, you want to create a sales order and then transfer that inventory to another location, and thus satisfying the sales order, making it closed. Okay, so that's one scenario, and this is the scenario that I have enabled. The second scenario is when I click transferring from a sales order is used for consignment. So this is if you're in a consignment business where you do a sales order, someone calls you up, you have that, and then you transfer the inventory to them from that sales order, and then ultimately doesn't close the sales order, but you're ultimately going to do a ship doc from that location that will relieve the inventory automatic from the location that you transferred it via the sales order. Okay. So that's something that if you're interested in, we can do a demo on that as well. All right. So at this time, I'm going to open up. I'm going to open it up for some questions. If you have any questions on this, it's pretty straightforward, I think, in terms of that, the locations. Are there any questions?
Looks like nothing yet, but just wanted to let everyone know that KB articles for everything he's gone through will be in the helpful resources on the email that I send out when I create this into a recording. So we'll make sure to have KB articles on everything he went through also, so that you can go through it slowly if you want to intricately set up your bins and locations.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. If anybody has...
we've got, can you disable or enable a location from cycle counting? From
the cycle counting, you mean a specific bin to count or a specific set of bins to count is something that we're working on. You could, of course, on the location, on the count itself, you can completely ignore any locations that you don't want. So either you can delete the bin completely out of there, so I can actually delete that if I wanted to out of the count, or I can filter. I can set a filter for this, and just filter for whatever set of bins that I want to filter for. All right. In the future, we will have the ability to not even include certain bins in the count. That's a good point.
All right, awesome. He said thanks.